for many years. And in order to be the best ski instructor he could be, he wanted to remember people's names. So he wrote down, typed up, details about people and their names. I just want to read you a couple of them. Matt Tribblehorn, Denver, Colorado. Chem major, quit in November. Mayor Vaspin, drove an MG56. Lee Kiernan, Squaw Valley, California, tall, dark, good-looking sports type. Don, rented poles, short, pleasant man. Lieutenant Pochari, hi-fi, that's mentioned a couple times in people. I guess that was important. Hi-fi, New York, West Point grad, no confidence in people. But our favorite one by far was Inga, Swede, blonde, tall, fine with martinis. When I showed this to the rest of my siblings, it turns out that we do share more than a few traits with my dad. We all shared this trait too. In fact, one sibling pulled up their phone notes of all the people they've met with a detail or two of each person and their name. Another one pulled out a scrap of paper from their wallet, same thing. And then there's me. I keep my list on the fridge. Every neighbor I've met in Elwyn Park since we moved here a year and a half ago. Just a few details to remember their names by. The second thing my dad mastered as a traveling salesman was front-to-back memorization of the Rand McNally Road Atlas. We all remember this book. Now that may seem like an exaggeration, and perhaps it is, but if you wanted to get somewhere, anywhere, my dad could draw you a detailed map to get there. Even down to Costco, which was just down the hill from our house. My husband said, I'm going to run to Costco. My dad said, let me draw you a map. So he knew his stuff. He really knew his stuff. Some of my very favorite family gatherings include a hand-drawn map from my dad. In fact, one year when my parents were celebrating their 50th anniversary, we were all going to meet up in Bass Lake in California. And my dad sent each of my siblings a large manila envelope with all the details included inside about the cabin, things you should bring, things you shouldn't bring, etc., and a AAA map with the route from your house to the cabin outlined in yellow highlight. I don't think my dad actually ever used GPS in his life, but he did own every single AAA map that was produced. And not long ago, a few years ago, before the pandemic, my dad found out that you could take as many AAA maps as you wanted. So he went in and took a stack of each area where every one of my siblings lives and handed it to us and said, you're gonna need these. GPS, no thank you. My dad was also a wealth of information. In a very low-key way, he passed on his vast and varied wealth of knowledge to each of us. He was our first tennis coach, our first accountant, our first employer. He taught us all about business, our first ski instructor, my first photography teacher. I mean, you get the idea. And another particular trait of my dad's is that he was really dedicated to his health and well-being. He believed wholeheartedly in recovery, doing whatever it took to recover completely. Whether it was tennis elbow or knee surgery, or back in 2005, a little bout of prostate cancer. If he had an issue, he would research it up and down, backwards and sideways, and write the Bible on it. And the point of that was to help other people, to share it with other people. He truly believed in resting the arm as long as it took, doing the daily leg lifts, and all the Kegel exercises you could manage in a day, as often as required until recovery came. He committed to his physical wellness and we were all extremely inspired. When 2020 arrived and the world began to shut down, we noticed my dad's brain began to do the same. At first it was small things like where the cat food goes, and then it was watching him empty the dishwasher and silently walk around the kitchen, searching for where each utensil or pot or pan lived, not saying a thing, never asking any of us. Then it was asking over and over and over how to play our nightly game of Rummy Cube. Then it was the big one, getting lost on the way to the tennis club, a place he had driven to multiple times a week and in his retirement every single day for over 40 years. That's when we knew. See, the tennis club was a place my dad loved. And the tennis place was a place my dad was the guy you wanted to know because he knew everybody and he never missed an opportunity to play. Dementia is a beast, and there is no amount of light lifts or research that you can do to make it better. After about a year, as the world slowly started repairing itself, we knew some things in our house never would. But the better part was that we all got to finally start coming home and being together. It was finally safe to gather in our home and enjoy large family meals and hang out together, no more standing outside the door away from each other and waving. It was pretty fantastic, and we were really excited. So we were all in the dining room having a big meal, and my mom and dad were in the kitchen putting away dishes, and my dad stood up and pointed into the dining room and asked my mom, "Who's that?" He was pointing at me. And my mom said, "Well, that's Molly, Dick. That's your daughter, Molly." And he said, "Daughter? What's that?" And she said, "Well, I'm her mother and you're her father and that's our daughter. And she's married to that guy sitting next to her. That's Ryan, her husband." My dad thought that was so funny. He said to my mom, "That can't be. There's no way that can't be because I've known that guy for 50 years. And I've never seen her." So later, when he and I were sitting together, I said to him, I thought it was neat that he was surprised. I could understand why he was surprised that I was married to that guy he knew. Now, secretly, I thought it was super cool that he thought my husband, of everybody, was one of his old pals. I mean, my dad had some really cool friends. So I said, I agree, it was crazy, right? That I ended up with this guy of all guys, but isn't it great that I really landed a good one? And he turned to me with a big smile. Oh, he was so happy. And he said to me something that he'd always said, but was repeating more and more as regular words kind of escaped him. And he patted my arm and he said, "Good for you. Good for you." When we sat together, after about a year, oh, excuse me. I want to jump to. Over the next year, we spent a lot of time together. We spent a lot of time together outside. My parents live in Southern California in the same house I grew up in, and it's beautiful. There's no bad weather ever. It's always sunny, and we look out over the ocean, and there's a slight breeze, and my dad would sit out there for hours with me. And I could hold his hand. I loved holding his hand. And he was happy to hold hands forever. My mom walked out. She saw us sitting out there, and she thought it was so cute. She walked out and said, "Oh, this is so sweet. Look at you two. I love this. Dick, who is this?" And he said, "I don't know." And I kept smiling, holding his hand, and she said, "But you're holding hands." And he looked and said, She's holding my hand. I didn't drop it, I kept holding his hand. Sitting on the couch together, as time moved on and things got less and less coherent and conversation became less and less important. And I decided I should use these opportunities to say it all. Tell him everything I'd been thinking. Things I'd said to him my entire life, but I wanted to say one more time. Dad, you are amazing. Dad, you've done such an incredible job here. Dad, you should be proud of everything you have done for this family. I love what you've done for our family, Dad, kept us together in this house. Thank you for everything, Dad. I love you, Dad. And he looked at me and very seriously said, you just said something very important. I thought maybe repeatedly calling him Dad had triggered something, a feeling maybe, or maybe even a memory. Maybe something was going to pop up, and I looked at him expectantly, and he said, love. And I decided then, it didn't really matter if he remembered that I was Molly, the grand finale. It didn't even matter if he remembered I was his daughter. The only thing that mattered is that he remembered love. That he knew he was loved. That love stayed on his brain. Thank you.